Admiral Daniel Hayes stood alone on the observation deck of Station Omega 7. The massive windows stretched from floor to ceiling, showing him a view of 1,000 stars burning in the darkness of space. He had spent 30 years in the Navy, but he never got tired of looking at the stars. Each one was a sun. Each one might have planets. Each one might have life. The station was the largest structure humans had ever helped build. It floated at the edge of Valorian space, serving as the main hub for the Galactic Coalition. The Coalition was an alliance of 400 different species from across 3 galaxies. The Valorians had started it 12,000 years ago, back when humans were still living in caves and hunting with stone tools. Humans had only joined the Coalition 60 years ago. In galactic terms, that was nothing, a blink of an eye. Most of the older species still treated humans like children who had wandered into a room full of adults. They were polite about it, but Daniel could always feel it. The slight pause before they spoke to him. The careful way they explained simple things. The surprise when humans did something clever. Daniel did not mind. He understood. Humans were new to space. They had a lot to learn. The door behind him slid open with a soft hiss. He turned to see Lieutenant Claire Morgan rushing toward him. She was young, maybe 28, with short red hair and sharp green eyes. She was also one of the best officers he had ever worked with. But right now, her face was pale and her hands were shaking. "Admiral, we have a situation," she said. Her voice was tight with something that might have been fear. Daniel straightened up. "Report. An unidentified vessel just dropped out of hyperspace near the outer perimeter. About 2 million kilometers from the station. Unidentified? Run it through the database again." Claire shook her head. "We did, sir. 3 times. There is no match. No transponder signal. No communication attempts. Nothing in any database from any of the 400 member species. Nobody knows what it is." Daniel felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. The Coalition had been cataloging ships and species for 12,000 years. They had records of every spacefaring civilization in 3 galaxies. Every ship design. Every energy signature. Every communication protocol. The idea that something could appear with no record at all was almost impossible. "Show me," he said. They walked quickly through the corridors of the station. Aliens of a dozen different species moved past them, going about their daily business. A group of tall, thin Mundari traders argued about shipping prices. A Kreth warrior in heavy armor stood guard outside an embassy door. 2 small, fuzzy Pelori children ran past, chasing each other and laughing in their high-pitched voices. None of them knew yet. None of them had any idea that something strange had just arrived. The command center was a massive circular room filled with holographic displays and busy officers from a dozen species. In the center stood High Commander Zereth, the Valorian in charge of the station. He was tall, nearly 7 feet, with silver skin that seemed to glow faintly from within. His eyes were solid black, and his face showed no expression that Daniel could read. But Daniel had worked with Valorians long enough to notice the small signs. The way Zyrith's fingers kept twitching, the slight tremor in his shoulders. The High Commander was worried. "Admiral Hayes," Zyrith said as Daniel approached. "Good. You need to see this." He gestured toward the main display. The image showed a ship floating in the darkness of space, and Daniel felt his breath catch in his throat. The ship was beautiful. That was his first thought. It was sleek and angular, shaped almost like an arrow pointing toward some distant target. The hull was completely black, darker than the space around it. It did not reflect the light from nearby stars. It seemed to absorb it, like a hole cut into the fabric of reality. "What am I looking at?" Daniel asked quietly. "We do not know," Zyrith admitted. There was something in his voice that Daniel had never heard before. Uncertainty. Maybe even fear. Our scanners cannot identify the hull material. It does not match any known element or compound. The energy readings make no sense. The design matches nothing in our records. How big is it? Approximately 300 meters long. Smaller than a battleship. Larger than a cruiser. Claire stepped forward, checking her datapad. Sir, I have the speed calculations. When this thing dropped out of hyperspace, it was traveling at 0.97 light speed. Daniel stared at her. That is not possible. Nothing can travel that fast in normal space. The energy requirements alone would be astronomical. I know, sir. I checked the numbers 5 times. 0.97 light speed. Without a hyperspace tunnel. Without any engine signature we can detect. Xyrith made a sound low in his throat. In 12,000 years, we have never seen anything like this. Our fastest ships can barely reach 0.2 light speed in normal space. This vessel is nearly 5 times faster. The room had gone quiet. Officers of a dozen species stood frozen at their stations, staring at the display. The air felt heavy with tension. Has it done anything? Daniel asked. Any hostile moves? Any attempts to communicate? Nothing, Cyrus said. It dropped out of hyperspace, stopped exactly 2 million kilometers from the station, and has remained perfectly still ever since. No signals. No weapons charging. No movement at all. It is simply waiting. Waiting for what? No one had an answer. Daniel studied the ship on the display. There was something about it that bothered him. Something he could not quite name. The shape felt familiar somehow, like a word on the tip of his tongue that he could not quite remember. Get me every scanner we have focused on that thing, he ordered. I want to know everything. Hull composition. Energy signatures. Interior layout if we can manage it. And keep trying to establish communication. Every frequency. Every known language protocol. Already in progress, Xyrith said. So far, nothing has worked. The minutes stretched into hours. The ship did not move. It did not respond to any signals. It simply hung there in the darkness, silent and still as a stone. Word spread quickly through the station. By evening, the corridors were filled with worried conversations in 100 different languages. The Kreth ambassador demanded to know if this was a threat. The Mundari traders wanted to know if shipping routes were safe. The Pelori children had stopped playing, picking up on the fear of the adults around them, and still, the ship waited. Daniel stayed in the command center, drinking cup after cup of cold coffee, watching the display until his eyes burned. Something was coming. He could feel it in his bones. After 60 years of being the newcomers, the children, the species that nobody took seriously, something was about to change. He just did not know if that change would be wonderful or terrible. The stars burned on in the darkness, keeping their secrets. And the black ship waited, patient as death, for something only it understood. Commander Nathan Pierce had volunteered for the mission without hesitation. When Admiral Hayes asked for someone to lead the first contact team, Nathan stepped forward before anyone else could speak. He was 35 years old, with dark hair going gray at the temples and calm brown eyes that rarely showed fear. He had made first contact with 3 new species during his career. He knew how to stay calm when everything was strange and unknown. But this was different. This was not just unknown. This was impossible. The shuttle moved slowly through the darkness of space, carrying Nathan and his small team toward the mysterious black ship. The vessel grew larger in the viewport with every passing minute. Up close, it was even more unsettling than it had appeared on the station's displays. The hull seemed to drink in the light from the shuttle's running lamps. No reflections, no shine, just endless, perfect blackness. All attempts at communication have failed, reported Ensign Amy Lynn from the communications station. She was young and nervous, her fingers dancing across her controls as she tried frequency after frequency. Every channel, every protocol, every known language. Complete silence. Nathan nodded slowly. He had expected as much. Sitting beside him was Thalix, a Valorian science officer with silver skin and careful movements. Thalix had studied unknown phenomena for over 200 years. He was supposed to be the expert, but even he looked worried as he stared at his scanner readings. The hull material does not match any known element or compound, Thalix said quietly. Not in our databases. Not in the Coalition archives. Not anywhere. It is as if this ship is made of something that should not exist. What about power readings? Nathan asked. Impossible to determine. The energy signatures do not follow any pattern I recognize. They seem to change moment by moment, as if the ship is alive somehow. Nathan filed that thought away. A living ship. Stranger things existed in the galaxy, but not many. The shuttle drew closer. 500 kilometers. 400. 300. The black ship filled the viewport now, blocking out the stars behind it. Nathan could see no windows, no markings, no visible engines. Just smooth, dark curves that seemed to go on forever. Sir, Amy said suddenly, her voice rising. Something is happening. Nathan leaned forward. On the surface of the black ship, a section of hull was changing. The smooth surface rippled like water, then folded inward, creating an opening. A docking port had appeared where there had been nothing but solid material a moment before. It knows we are here, Thalix whispered. It is inviting us inside. Nathan studied the opening. It was perfectly sized for their shuttle. Not too big, not too small. Exactly right. That felt intentional. That felt like someone had planned this moment very carefully. Take us in, Nathan ordered the pilot. Slow and steady. The shuttle glided into the opening. Inside, they found a corridor stretching ahead of them, lit by soft blue light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. The walls were smooth and dark, but they moved slightly, rippling, shifting, like living tissue breathing slowly in sleep. The shuttle settled onto what might have been a floor. The engines powered down. For a long moment, no one moved. No one spoke. The only sound was the soft hum of the shuttle's life support systems. Atmosphere check, Nathan said quietly. Amy ran the scans. Her eyes went wide. She ran them again. Then a third time. This is impossible, she said. What is it? The air out there. It is Earth standard atmosphere. Exactly Earth standard. 21% oxygen. 78% nitrogen. The right pressure. The right temperature. Even the humidity matches Earth normal. This alien ship has air that is perfect for humans. Nathan felt something cold run down his spine. Why would an unknown vessel, something that matched nothing in 12,000 years of coalition records, be configured for human biology? Humans were newcomers. Humans were unimportant. Humans were nobody special, unless they were wrong about that. We go in, Nathan decided. Full environmental suits anyway. I do not care what the readings say. I want everyone protected. They sealed their suits and cycled through the airlock. The corridor stretched before them, blue light pulsing gently like a heartbeat. The walls continued to shift and move. Nathan had the strange feeling that the ship was watching them, studying them, deciding what to do with them. They walked forward. Their footsteps made no sound on the floor. The air inside their suits was cold and clean, but Nathan was sweating. Every instinct he had was screaming at him to turn back, to run, to get as far away from this place as possible. He kept walking anyway. That was his job. The corridor ended at a large door. Like everything else on the ship, It was smooth and dark. There were no controls, no handles, no way to open it that Nathan could see. Then it opened anyway. Beyond the door was a chamber larger than any room Nathan had ever seen on a ship. It could have held 1,000 people easily. The ceiling rose so high that it disappeared into shadow. The blue light was stronger here, bright enough to see clearly, and standing in the center of the chamber was a woman. Nathan stopped. His team stopped behind him. They stared. The woman looked human. Completely human. Brown hair falling to her shoulders. Calm gray eyes. A face that might have belonged to anyone on Earth. She was wearing a uniform that Nathan did not recognize. Dark blue with silver trim, cut in a style that seemed both ancient and modern at the same time. She smiled at them. It was a warm smile. A welcoming smile. The smile of someone greeting old friends after a long time apart. "Welcome aboard," she said. Her voice was clear and steady, and she spoke in perfect English. "We have been waiting for humanity to reach this point for a very long time." Nathan found his voice. "Who are you?" "My name is Laura Bennett. I am the director of this vessel. You are human." "Yes and no. It is complicated. But I promise, I will explain everything." Thalek stepped forward, his scanner still running. "This is not possible. You appear human, but your cellular structure is different. Your energy signature is different. You are reading as both organic and something else. Something I cannot identify." Laura nodded as if she had expected this. "Your technology is not advanced enough to understand what I am." "Not yet, but it will be." "That is why we are here." "What do you mean?" Nathan demanded. "Where did you come from? How do you know our language? Why is this ship configured for human biology?" Laura raised a hand gently. "So many questions. And you deserve answers to all of them. But not here. Your leaders need to hear this. Everyone needs to hear this. What I have to tell you will change everything your galaxy believes about itself." "Tell us something now," Nathan said. He was not going anywhere until he had some answers. "Give us something. One thing. Help us understand." Laura studied him for a long moment. Her gray eyes seemed to look right through him, seeing something he could not imagine. "Very well," she said finally. "One thing. A beginning. Earth was not your origin. It was your return." Nathan felt the words hit him like a physical blow. He did not understand them. They made no sense. But somehow, deep in his bones, he felt that they were true. "What does that mean?" he asked. Laura smiled again. That same warm, welcoming smile. But now there was something else in it. Something ancient and sad and hopeful all at once. "It means you are not newcomers to the galaxy, Commander Pierce. You are the oldest. The first. And after a very, very long sleep, you are finally waking up." The blue light pulsed around them. The walls of the living ship continued their slow, rhythmic movement. And Nathan Pierce stood in the center of an impossible place, facing a woman who was about to turn his entire universe upside down. The news spread across the coalition like fire through dry grass. Within hours, every world in 3 galaxies knew the story. Humanity was not the newcomer species that everyone had dismissed for 60 years. Humanity was the beginning of everything. The reactions were as varied as the species themselves. The Monterey traders sent messages of congratulation and immediately began negotiating new trade deals with human colonies. They were practical people. They did not care about ancient history. They cared about profit. And being friendly with the most important species in the universe seemed like good business. The Pelori, the small furry beings with their gentle ways and love of art, responded with joy. Their oldest song spoke of the ones who came before, the beings of light who had planted the seeds of life across the stars. They had always believed those stories were true. Now they had proof, but not everyone was happy. The Kreth Dominion had been rivals of the Valorians for thousands of years. They were a proud warrior species, strong and fierce, who believed that power was the only thing that mattered. For centuries, they had been content to be second strongest. But to learn that humans, those weak little beings they had always mocked, were actually the founders of all galactic civilization, that was too much to accept. Ambassador Vorath stood before the Kreth Council of War. His scales were dark with anger, and his claws scraped against the floor with every step. "This is a lie," he declared. "A human fabrication designed to elevate their pathetic species above their betters. We cannot accept this. We will not accept this. The evidence in the archive appears genuine," one of the council members said carefully. "Our scientists have examined it. They cannot find any signs of deception. Then the archive itself is false, or the woman who controls it is manipulating the data. There must be some explanation that does not require us to bow to humans." The council exchanged uneasy glances. Vorath was speaking from anger, not logic. But many of them felt the same way. The idea that humans were the source of all intelligent life was too strange, too threatening to everything they believed. "What do you propose?" the council leader asked. Vorath smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "We eliminate the threat before it grows. The humans do not yet understand what they are. They have not accessed their ancient technology. They are still weak. If we strike now, we can destroy them before they become something we cannot stop. You suggest open war? Against a species that may have once ruled the universe? I suggest we finish this before they remember how to fight back." The vote was close, but Vorath won. Within the hour, 300 Kreth warships were moving towards Station Omega-7. Back on the station, Admiral Hayes received the warning from Valorian intelligence. He stood in the command center, staring at the display showing the approaching fleet. "How long until they arrive?" he asked. 6 hours, Commander Pierce reported. "Maybe less. They are pushing their engines hard. Our forces? 22 human vessels. 37 Valorian ships that have agreed to stand with us. Against 300 Kreth warships, our chances are not good." Daniel felt a cold knot forming in his stomach. This was exactly what he had feared. The revelation about human origins was supposed to bring understanding. Instead, it had brought fear. And fear made people do terrible things. Lavra Bennett appeared beside him. She moved silently, seeming to materialize from nothing. Daniel had stopped being surprised by her strange abilities. "The Kreth are coming," he said without turning. "I know. Can you stop them? You have technology we cannot even imagine. Can you use it to end this before it starts?" Lavra was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was sad. "I could. The archive contains weapons that would turn the Kreth fleet to dust in seconds. But that is not my choice to make. It is yours." Daniel finally turned to look at her. "What do you mean?" "The archive contains more than history. It contains everything your ancestors ever created. Every technology, every tool, every weapon. But it belongs to humanity. Only humans can access it. Only humans can decide how to use it. Then give it to us. Let us defend ourselves." Lavra shook her head slowly. "It is not that simple. The knowledge in the archive is vast, overwhelming. Your ancestors spent billions of years developing it. If I simply dumped all of that information into your minds, it would destroy you. The human brain cannot handle that much input all at once." Commander Pierce stepped forward. "There must be something you can do. Some way to help us without overwhelming us." Lavra considered this. Her gray eyes looked into distances that no one else could see. "There is one option," she said finally. "I can unlock a small portion of the archive. Just enough to help you survive this immediate threat. But I warn you, even a small portion will change you. Once you have this knowledge, you cannot go back to being what you were before. What choice do we have?" Daniel asked. "Let the Kreth slaughter everyone on this station? Let them destroy humanity before we even understand what we are?" "No, you are right. There is no real choice here. I am simply making sure you understand what you are agreeing to." The hours passed quickly. Too quickly. The Kreth fleet grew larger on the displays, spreading out in an attack formation. Their weapons were charging. Their shields were raised. They were not coming to talk. Every human on the station gathered in the Great Hall. Officers and enlisted personnel. Scientists and engineers. Pilots and medics. Men and women who had come to space seeking adventure and knowledge and purpose. Now they faced something none of them had expected. Laura stood before them. Her face was calm, but Daniel could see the weight of ages in her eyes. "What I am about to do will change you," she said. "Not physically, but mentally. You will remember things that you have forgotten for billions of years. You will understand concepts that currently make no sense. You will see the universe differently than you have ever seen it before." "And then what?" Someone called out. "What happens after?" "After, you will have to decide what kind of people you want to be. Your ancestors had the power to rule the universe. They chose to give it up. They chose to start over. Whatever you become now is up to you." Lieutenant Claire Morgan pushed through the crowd to stand beside Admiral Hayes. Her face was pale but determined. "I am not afraid," she said quietly. "I would rather know the truth than die in ignorance." Daniel nodded. He felt the same way. "Do it," he told Lavra. "Give us what we need." Lavra closed her eyes. The air in the hall seemed to thicken. Something was building. Something vast and powerful and ancient. "Remember," Lavra whispered, and humanity began to wake up. The Great Hall of Station Omega-7 had never been so crowded. Representatives from every major species in the coalition filled the enormous room, standing in groups and speaking in hushed voices. The air was thick with tension and the smell of 100 different biologies. Everyone had heard the rumors by now. Everyone wanted to know the truth. Admiral Daniel Hayes stood at the front of the hall beside High Commander Zyrith. They had prepared a raised platform for the presentation. Behind them, a massive holographic display waited to show what evidence the mysterious woman would provide. Lavra, Bennett walked into the hall with Commander Pierce and his team. The crowd fell silent instantly. Every eye turned toward the human woman who was not quite human. Lavra moved through the sea of aliens without fear, without hesitation, as if she had walked through such gatherings 1,000 times before. She stepped onto the platform and faced the assembly. A gray eye swept across the room, taking in the silver-skinned Valorians, the armored Kreth warriors, the small furry Pelori, and dozens of other species. She seemed to be memorizing every face. "Thank you for gathering," she said. Her voice carried easily through the hall, amplified by the station systems. "I know you have many questions. I will do my best to answer them. But first, I must tell you a story. A story that is very old. A story that will change everything you think you know about your galaxy and your place in it." The Kreth ambassador, a massive being covered in thick scales and carrying ceremonial weapons, stepped forward. "Who are you to summon us like children? Who are you to claim you have knowledge we lack?" Lavra regarded him calmly. "I am the last guardian of the archive. I have waited 14 billion years to deliver this message. I think that earns me a few minutes of your time." The hall went completely silent. 14 billion years. The universe itself was only slightly older than that. "You lie," the Kreth ambassador said, but his voice had lost its confidence. I have never lied, Lava replied. Watch, listen, then decide for yourself. She gestured, and the holographic display behind her came to life. The image showed a galaxy, but not the galaxy Daniel knew. This one was younger, brighter, filled with stars that burned with fierce energy. 14 billion years ago, Laura began, the first intelligent species emerged in this universe. They arose on a small planet orbiting a young star. They were curious and clever and determined. Over millions of years, they grew. They learned. They reached for the stars. The image shifted to show a civilization. Cities of impossible beauty stretched across a green world. Towers of crystal and light touched the clouds. Ships moved through the sky like silver birds. They called themselves many names over the ages. But in your language, they would simply be called humans. The hall erupted. Voices shouted in a dozen languages. The Kreth ambassador roared something that sounded like a curse. Even Zyrith, normally so calm, took a step backward in shock. Daniel felt his heart pounding in his chest. This could not be true. Human history was well documented. They had evolved on Earth over millions of years. They had fossils. They had genetic evidence. They had everything. Laura waited patiently for the noise to die down. When she spoke again, her voice was gentle but firm. I know this is difficult to accept. Let me show you more. The display changed again. Now it showed ships. Not the crude vessels that humanity had built in the last century. These were things of beauty and power. Ships that stretched for thousands of kilometers. Ships that moved between galaxies in moments. Ships that made the mightiest coalition battleship look like a child's toy. The first humans spread across the universe. They explored every corner of reality. They mastered technologies that would seem like magic to you. They lived for millions of years. They built wonders that I cannot even describe. High Commander Zyrith found his voice. Our oldest records speak of the architects, beings who came before all others, beings of light and power who shaped the galaxy and then vanished. Are you saying these architects were human? Yes, Laura said simply. The architects were human. Your ancestors. And much more than that. She made another gesture. The display showed planets. Thousands of them. Millions of them. Each one unique. Each one beautiful. The humans did not just explore the universe. They filled it with life. They seeded planets with the building blocks of biology. They guided evolution on countless worlds. Every intelligent species in your coalition, every race that has ever reached for the stars, exists because humans planted the seeds billions of years ago. The Valorians, the Kreth, the Mundari, the Pelori, all of them, created by humans, designed by humans, children of a species they had always looked down upon as newcomers. Daniel watched the faces around him. He saw shock. He saw denial. He saw fear. He saw anger. But underneath all of that, in some faces, he saw something else. Recognition, as if some ancient memory, buried deep in their genes, was stirring to life. Why? Someone called out. Why would they do this? Laura's expression softened. Because they were lonely. They had conquered everything. They had achieved everything. They had lived for billions of years with no equals, no companions, no one who could truly understand them. So they created children. They created you. All of you. They wanted a universe full of life and wonder and diversity. But if they were so powerful, Commander Pierce asked, what happened to them? Where did they go? Laura sighed. It was a sound full of ancient sorrow. They became tired. They had seen everything. Done everything. There were no more mysteries. No more challenges. They had achieved immortality, but they had lost something precious. They had lost the ability to grow, to change, to become something new. The display showed the humans again, but now they looked different, sad, empty, beings of enormous power who had nothing left to strive for. They decided to start over, Lavra continued. They chose to forget, to return to the beginning, to place themselves on a small planet at the edge of an average galaxy and erase their own memories, their own technology, their own history. They wanted to experience the universe as newcomers again. They wanted to struggle and fail and learn and grow. They believed that was the only way to heal their souls. Earth, Daniel whispered. They went to Earth. Yes, they created new bodies for themselves. Simpler bodies. Mortal bodies. They buried their technology where it could not be found. They locked away their memories. And they became what you are today. A young species just learning to reach for the stars. A species that has to struggle for everything it achieves. A species that grows stronger with every challenge it faces. The hall was silent. The weight of this revelation pressed down on everyone present. Some of us stayed behind, Lavra said quietly. A few volunteers who agreed to remember, to watch over the experiment, to preserve the archive until the day when humanity was ready to remember. I have been waiting for this moment since before your oldest species took its first breath. Admiral Hayes stepped forward. His voice was steady, though his hands were shaking. Why now? Why reveal this now? Lavra smiled at him. Because you are ready. Not to become what you were. That would defeat the purpose. But to know the truth. To understand where you came from. And to choose your own path forward. What if we do not believe you? Zyrith asked. Then look at the evidence. The archive contains records going back 14 billion years. Every discovery, every creation, every moment of your ancestors' journey. It would take you centuries to review it all, but it is there. Every word I have spoken can be verified. She spread her arms wide, and suddenly the display showed everything at once. Billions of years of human history, trillions of lives, countless worlds, an empire that had spanned the entire universe. You are not newcomers, Lavra said, and her voice rang through the hall like a bell. You are the oldest, the first, the ones who made everything else possible. And now, after a very long sleep, you are finally waking up. Daniel looked at the faces around him. He saw Valorians and Kreth and a dozen other species, all staring at the display with expressions he could not name. The galaxy would never be the same after today. Whatever came next, everything had changed. The knowledge came like a wave crashing against the shore. Daniel Hayes felt it pour into his mind, filling spaces he never knew were empty. Images flashed before his eyes. Cities made of light. Ships that swam between stars like fish through water. Faces of people he had never met, but somehow remembered. It hurt. It burned. It felt like being born and dying at the same time. And then it was over. Daniel opened his eyes. The world looked different now. He could see things he had never noticed before. The patterns in the air. The energy flowing through the walls. The heartbeat of the station itself, steady and strong. Around him, the other humans were having similar experiences. Lieutenant Morgan had tears streaming down her face. Commander Pierce was staring at his own hands as if seeing them for the first time. Ensign Amy Lynn was laughing and crying at the same time. They remembered. Not everything. Lavra had said it would only be a small portion. But even a small portion of 14 billion years was more than any of them could fully understand. They knew things now. Things about physics and energy and space itself. Things that had taken their ancestors millennia to discover. How do you feel? Lavra asked quietly. Daniel flexed his hands. Energy crackled between his fingers. Not electricity exactly. Something older. Something more fundamental. Different, he said. I feel different. The alarms began to wail. The Kreth fleet had arrived. On the main display, 300 warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. They surrounded Station Omega-7 like wolves surrounding a wounded deer. Their weapons were locked on. Their shields were raised. They had come to destroy everything. Ambassador Vorath's face appeared on the communication channel. His scales were dark with triumph. Humans, he sneered. Your lies end now. Surrender the woman called Lavra Bennett and her ship. Surrender all access to this archive she claims to control. Do this, and we will allow some of you to live as slaves. Refuse, and we will burn your species from the galaxy. Daniel looked at the display. 300 ships. Thousands of weapons. Against his small fleet and a station that was never built for war. But he was not afraid anymore. Ambassador Vorath, Daniel replied calmly. We decline your offer. Vorath laughed. Then you choose death. So be it. The Kreth fleet opened fire. Thousands of energy beams lanced toward the station, enough firepower to crack a planet in half. The space around Omega-7 turned white with destructive light. Daniel raised his hand. The beams stopped. All of them. They hung frozen in space, like glowing threads suspended in amber. The energy that should have destroyed the station simply waited, held in place by something the Kreth could not understand. This is not possible, Vorath gasped. His voice had lost all its confidence. Many things are possible, Daniel said quietly. Your people have simply forgotten. He made a gesture, casual and easy, like brushing away a fly. The frozen energy beams curved away from the station and dissipated harmlessly into empty space. Across the hall, the other humans were discovering their own abilities. Claire Morgan was accessing systems with her mind, controlling computers without touching them. Commander Pierce was communicating with the Valorian ships, coordinating their defense without using any technology. Amy Lim was analyzing the Kreth weapon systems, finding weaknesses that no scanner had ever detected. The human ships began to transform. Their hulls shifted and grew, reconfiguring into new shapes. Technology that had been sleeping in their cores, buried deep by ancestors who wanted their children to earn everything themselves, finally woke up. In moments, 22 outdated human vessels became something else. Something beautiful. Something terrifying. You attacked us, Daniel broadcast to the Kreth fleet. You came here to murder innocent people because you were afraid of what they might become. But we will not respond the same way. We will not slaughter you the way you planned to slaughter us. Then what will you do? Vorath demanded. His fleet had stopped firing. They were watching, waiting, afraid. We will give you a choice. The same choice our ancestors gave themselves billions of years ago. You can continue to fight. You can cling to your anger and your fear and your pride. And eventually, you will destroy yourselves. Every species that chooses the path ends the same way. Daniel paused. The human fleet spread out among the Kreth ships, not attacking, not threatening, simply present. Or you can grow. You can change. You can become something better than you are today. Our ancestors did not create you to be our enemies. They created you to be our family, our younger siblings, our partners in the great adventure of existence. The Kreth fleet hung motionless in space. On the communication channel, Vorath's face showed a war of emotions: anger, fear, confusion, and something else. Something that might have been shame. How do we know you will not betray us? He asked finally. How do we know you will not use this power to enslave us? It was Lavra who answered. She stepped forward, her voice carrying to every ship, every station, every world that was listening. because they chose to forget. 14 billion years ago, humans ruled the universe. They could have kept that power forever. They could have made every other species bow before them. Instead, they gave it all up. They started over from nothing. They struggled and suffered and grew, just like everyone else. She smiled at Daniel. The humans you know today are not the conquerors their ancestors could have been. They are something better. They are people who know what it means to be weak. They are people who remember what it feels like to be afraid and alone and dismissed. They will not do to you what was done to them. Commander Pierce stepped forward to broadcast his own message to the coalition. We are not your rulers. We are not your masters. We are your oldest siblings, finally come home after a very long journey. We forgot ourselves so we could remember what it means to grow, to struggle, to hope. Now we remember who we were, and we choose to become something new. The Kreth fleet began to power down their weapons. One by one, the warships lowered their shields. Not all of them. Some fled back into hyperspace, unable to accept this new reality. But many stayed. Many chose to listen. High Commander Zyrith appeared on the communication channel. His silver face showed wonder and something that might have been joy. What happens now? He asked. Admiral Hayes looked out at the stars. So many of them. So many worlds. So many possibilities. Now we start building, he said. Together. Not an empire like before. Something better. A partnership. A family. The universe is vast enough for everyone. Lavra watched from her ship as the human fleet spread out among the coalition vessels. She had waited 14 billion years for this moment. She had wondered countless times if humanity would remember its true nature, if they would become something worthy of their ancestors. Now she had her answer. She walked to the heart of her vessel, where the archive waited. The complete history of humanity, stretching back to the beginning of the universe itself. All of it preserved. All of it safe. All of it waiting to be shared when the time was right. The time was finally right. Lavra smiled as she began the process of unlocking the archive. Not all at once. That would overwhelm them. But piece by piece. Discovery by discovery. Gift by gift. Humanity had returned. And this time, they remembered who they were. The stars had never looked brighter.